It's Monday of the fifth week of Lenten season, March the 22nd of the year of the Lord 2021. The Gospel is taken from St. John, chapter 8, verse 1 to 11. Jesus went to the Mount of Olives, but early in the morning he arrived again in the temple area, and all the people started coming to him, and he sat down and taught them. Then the scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery and made her stand in the middle. They said to him, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the very act of committing adultery. Now, in the law of Moses commanded us to stone such women. So, what do you say?" They said this to test him, so that they could have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and began to write on the ground with his finger. But when they continued asking him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let the one among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." Again, he bent down and wrote on the ground. And in response, they went away one by one, beginning with the elders. So he was left alone with the woman before him. Then Jesus straightened up and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" She replied, "No one, sir." Then Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go, and from now on, do not sin anymore." The Gospel of the Lord. This is a beautiful story that the scholars, they said that this doesn't belong to the Gospel of John. Maybe it has more the idea of the Gospel of Luke, but it was so important that they put it there. It cuts what is before and after this passage, but it's beautiful. There is some kind of a debate. First, Jesus with the Pharisees, and finally there is a dialogue with Jesus with the woman. Now, Jesus went out to the Mount of Olives. The Mount of Olives is just there in front of the Temple of Jerusalem. There is a valley, and Jesus normally went there to pray, to stay. In fact, Jesus constantly goes to pray in silence. No? So he is there, and then he goes back to the temple area, a very public place. The temple area is in those days even today standard. But imagine 2,000 years ago, it was a huge piazza, a huge plaza, so that everybody was there. It's not something very private, but it's very public. So the problem is this: the scribes and the Pharisees. Remember, the scribes were the experts in the law. The Pharisees were people who knew who tried to fulfill all the commandments of the law. They went to Jesus with this woman who was caught in adultery. Very interesting. They didn't bring her husband, or they didn't bring her lover. She's by herself. And the scribes and the Pharisees recognized the authority of Jesus. They call him teacher. No? And they caught this woman in the very act of committing adultery. So they wanted to see what was the answer of Jesus to the law of Moses, no? Because the law of Moses commanded somebody caught in adultery to be stoned to death. So the woman was in danger, really, no? But they said this not because they care about the woman. They didn't care about her husband. She was an instrument to get even with Jesus, to have some charge to bring against Jesus. The woman was used as an object at the end. But very interesting, Jesus doesn't say anything, no? Until everybody leaves at the end. When Jesus says, "Let the one among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." No? Nobody is there blameless, without guilt. And at the end, there St. Augustine says, there is misery and mercy. Mercy is kneeling down, and misery is standing. So Jesus stood up, mercy, and asked the woman, "Where are your accusers?" And Jesus treated her not as an object of evil, but as a person, woman. And the story concludes Jesus forgiving sins. Maybe the story is that Jesus did not accept the interpretation of the law to stone women to death in adultery. What about men? But especially that Jesus has the power, the authority to forgive sins, to reinstate people to their own dignity, in this case, to her dignity. And Jesus tells her, go and sin no more. It's the mercy of Jesus. Today, we begin this week before Holy Week. Let us go to the mercy of God. Let us rejoice in God who is merciful. And by the way, there is a beautiful story that you can read in the first reading. It's a bit longer, which is from the book of Daniel. It's the story of Susanna. You can read chapter 13 of the prophet Daniel. Have a blessed Monday.